what did you learn from your role as the former chairman of the White House Climate Change Task Force?
Oh, I learned so much. It was a absolute trial by fire in needing to learn the substance, learn the science, learn the economics, learn the technologies. So I learned so much. But what I love about my job, I will say, is I'm learning new things every single day still. But that was a real trial by fire. So that was a tremendous part of it. It's also a tremendous privilege and honor and responsibility to kind of be in charge of this issue across the federal government, but it's also at times very, very frustrating. And part of it was, this is 1998, 1999, 2000. There wasn't a lot of consensus, but what I had, and I should, go back to the inspiration and give some credit where credit's due, and that's to President Bill Clinton, who he himself passionately believed that dealing with climate change was actually a nearly unprecedented economic opportunity if we seized it and did it right. And I said to him when I'm leaving the White House, what your vision there is going to be my career. So that was inspiration as well. I certainly should pay credit there.
What is the economic benefit of sustainability in business?
Well, that's I give hour-long talks on this, so I'll try to really see if I can categorize it, in a fairly simple way. So sustainability is very broad. Let's narrow in. Well, okay, let's take with sustainability. So sustainability done right starts with a company kind of looking at itself through a different lens. I like to talk about how it's like putting on a pair of night vision goggles, and all of a sudden you see things you didn't see before. It may be some waste, stuff that you're throwing out over here. Now, a lot of this is some companies are still discovering this. The leading companies, they've done all this, but you start looking for things in different ways, tracking different metrics, like waste. Okay, there's a metric. Energy use, there's a metric, and you start looking at them in slightly different ways. And one thing you identify are opportunities to save money. So if we actually increase the energy efficiency of this device, of this process, of this building, what does that lead to? It lowers our energy costs. What does it also lead to? It reduces emissions. So if you may start looking at it from an emissions perspective, but what you find at the end of that journey are monetary savings. Okay, so that's one clear benefit, but it's more than that. I don't want to say in a way that implies that this is superficial, okay, but reputation matters. Mm-hmm. And there's a direct correlation, millions of studies have shown this, between having a positive reputation and the bottom line. Brand value, it matters. And today, this was the case when I started on this, today it is absolutely the case that more and more of your customers, your employees, your potential employees care about this stuff. And they want to see that a company is taking positions and taking actions on issues like climate change. Or they may shop somewhere else. They may use somebody else's services. They may work somewhere else. And you can't compete and succeed as a company without talent and obviously without customers. Now, it was in the beginning that this was primarily understood by consumer-facing brands. Competitive, Coke or Pepsi, we're in such competition here that, maybe if we at Coke do a little more on climate sustainability and get that out, then somebody's going to grab the Coke instead of the Pepsi kind of thing. So that's pretty straightforward. But today, it's much more than that. I'm working for a business-to-business electronics company now, who came to me because they're like, we're actually losing jobs because the businesses we're selling to, these are not consumers, they're not, are asking us about sustainability. They don't think our answer is good enough, and they're going to our competitor. Wow, right? So that's like, okay, that's business value, if you understand that. So talent retention piece, the competition in the marketplace is not just consumer facing anymore, it's business to business. The fact that having a sustainability program actually will almost always make you a more efficient, aware, innovative, and competitive company.
What is the role of capitalism in climate change?
Okay, well, that's a broad question. Let me look backwards and then kind of look to today and look forward, because I think and hope and have dedicated my career to making the present and the future different than the past. So I think it's fair to say that historically, capitalism was a major, if not the greatest cause of man-made climate change to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, simple economic principles that historically fossil fuels were cheaper than alternatives. Fossil fuels enabled the modern economy. And I'm not criticizing this. This is obviously all the things that we've, accomplished as a society. So much of it was built on a fossil fuel economy of inexpensive and accessible energy. Great. The flaw was that the price of that energy didn't reflect all its costs, right? Like carbon emissions, and the fact that capitalism was consuming resources, in this case, the atmosphere, for which it did not pay. So it sent a distorted market signal about how inexpensive these fossil fuels actually were, the costs that were being socialized, and capitalism was very, very effective at privatizing gain and socializing cost. So the profit motive, which is one of the great drivers of human behavior, I would say, again, not criticizing that, is very effective and impactful, and in many parts of the world has created tremendous wealth. Put aside how that wealth is distributed, and that's a different talk. But the fact is, the marketplace and the profit motive in capitalism can be ruthlessly efficient. But if there's a market flaw in there, the end result may not yield appropriate social gain and outcome. So my kind of starting proposition is, okay, well, capitalism was so good and so effective at get us into this problem. What if we turned those efficiencies, those natural human forces, those powers of the market to actually help solve the problem instead of create it? And that's what I think is beginning to happen, and where I'm trying to drive it to. Again, understanding that capitalism is only going to kind of behave this way if in fact it is creating profit and value. And I firmly believe that going forward, the greatest pathway to value creation and profit is going to be through a climate change mitigation aligned pathway. And it's not just climate, it has to do with natural resources and water and land and all of that. So climate capitalism, environmental or sustainability, whatever you want to call it, it's all really the same principle. So I think that it is possible. I also think it is necessary, because I don't believe we're going to just regulate our way out of this problem. Certainly that's the case in the United States, and I think it's the case in many parts of the world. So, and it's not, let me be very clear, I'm not saying capitalism is going to solve this problem, we don't need policy. I'm absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is we need both, because that's the magnitude of the problem. the dire circumstances we're in, how far we are behind in mitigating climate change to meet what science tells us we need to meet to have a hospitable planet. So I hope I'm right.